Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It's about 10:58. Hope everyone's doing good. It's a beautiful winter day, a few days after Christmas. So, yeah, I been watching some movies. Well, surprise, surprise. Want to thank again the folks that have been joining this little parade, and all the folks that have been commenting on the videos. I really appreciate it. You know, it's all about that tight knit or that loosely based kind of community of other film fanatics interacting with other people. You know, I love running into people online or people that I know in person that you know really have a deep connection with film. I think that's what it's all about, and I love that enthusiasm. I love sharing ideas. I love when people recommend films, which happens a lot, and that's been really cool. So today is a big show. Today is on a movie that I have to say, behind the two most anticipated movies for me this year were was definitely Alien Romulus and what today's show is about, Robert Edgar's Nosferatu, which opened this weekend on Christmas Day, or this week, a couple days ago, and I got a chance to see it last night. And for me, it's like the two most anticipated movies I saw that I wanted to see, and then I finally saw. Alien Romulus was I think, a big uh, train wreck of a movie. That was also my one of my most anticipated films at one point, and probably my biggest disappointment of the year. But I went with a few friends last night to see Nosferatu. I'm a really big Robert Eggers fan. Anybody out there, he's really come into his own over the last probably 8 to 10 years or so. The first film of his, I think he has got just a fantastic track record as far as a filmmaker. I love filmmakers that have just really great consistency. Other modern filmmakers I feel that have that are is Denis Villeneuve, and Lee Winnell is another horror director who has a new film coming out, The Wolfman, which I'm really excited about. I saw the trailer for that in the theater. So, and I think Robert Eggers is a kind of a rare breed. The first film of his that I saw, and I believe it was the first movie of his, was The Witch, and I just think that movie is just glorious. And all of his films, I love all of them. He's directed the really incredible film The Lighthouse, and also The Northman, and so I believe that this is his fourth film. And he, as a director, he for a lot of his film, most of his films, he has like co-written most of his films with his brother. And I can't remember the name of it, but I believe his brother, Robert Eggers' brother, just released a horror film that I've heard is really good, and I'm definitely gonna do some investigation. As a director, Robert Eggers, I feel like he has such a high level of detail and richness to his storytelling. I feel like all of his films are like it's like a sense of when you have an encounter with like classic literature, where it's a timeless, ageless text story that you will want to revisit. And there's lots of layers. There's lots of colors. I would say, it's pretty safe to say I consider him to be a hard director, but he really expands on that genre. I think he does do things that are outside of that typical box of tools, and I think he has lots of other influences in his work. Lots of foreign films, foreign film directors. I think he has films that are kind of considered to be maybe along the art house kind of realm of things. Yeah, a lot of his films are slow burns, and I'm a huge fan of films that take their time, but yet you're getting all of this information. And I have to say, Nosferatu for me is one of the greatest adaptations of Dracula, the character Dracula, which has been around for almost close to over 100 years, and I'm a huge fan of my favorite vampire, or I should say Dracula adaptation is Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. I think that is a masterpiece. Other films that I really love as far as Dracula and his portrayal, or even you know charismatic, iconic actors that have played Dracula: Gary Oldman, Frank Langella. Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula is right at the top. I just think that's a masterwork. I'm also a huge fan of Frank Langella's Dracula. I love. I was raised on all of the classic Hammer films, starring the iconic Christopher Lee. I also love Frankenstein vs. Dracula, which is an incredible exploitation movie. That's one of my all-time favorite movies, and one of my all-time favorite kind of portrayals of Dracula. There's so many great vampire movies. It's the biggest, kind of subgenre in the entire horror world by far. But as far as a definitive classic tale of the iconic monster, Coppola's is definitely probably the greatest ever made. But I have to say, Nosferatu is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. I was blown away by it. I I just thought the it just oozed darkness. It was way more expansive than I thought. I saw, because my anticipation for this film was so great. I kind of couldn't wait to hear what people's reviews were. Because when you go into a movie cold, you want to go into a movie cold. At least I do. For me, I try not to watch trailers. There's a lot of times where I'm pretty strong about kind of drawing a line for myself where I'm not going to watch any reviews. I watch a lot of YouTube guys like most people, and especially since I started doing this channel, I watch lots of reviews on films that I'm really looking forward to. But I'm pretty steadfast about waiting till after I see them, because obviously those things really greatly influence. They can change your mindset. They can give you you're anticipating something so much, and you go in with a certain mindset, so it can affect your experience. But for this film, I was anticipating it for so long, and you know, I it seemed so far away when it was going to eventually come out, and it finally did. And so I I have to say that this is just an incredible film. It is definitely a film to see in the theater. I it's hard to say. Like I said, Coppola's version is probably my favorite. I think that this is a close tie. I might almost like this as much. It might almost be my my favorite in some ways. I just feel like this really it's an interesting movie, because there were criticisms that I heard about this movie, and I still do. Now I'm seeing much more positive reviews, but I feel that what this movie does is it borrows from lots of interesting things. I had a good friend who got a chance to see a very very early version of this film, and he was very good about being pretty tight-lipped about not letting me know too much. And so he did say that he felt that this film did borrow from obvious resources or obvious sources, but then not sources that you thought would necessarily happen. And I thought that was interesting. Obviously this is based on the adaptation of the original from the 30s, the silent film, which is of course a classic film. And but my friend said also that this movie also initially I thought this was going to be a retelling of that story. The initially, which was a knockoff or a ripoff of Bram Stoker's book, and that movie Nosferatu was done without any copyright clearance, so it was initially banned for a long time, and then it became public domain. The name of the novel, or the use of Dracula became public domain, and it was eventually released to the public. And it's a classic film. I mean, it's one of the great German expressionistic films, kind of the definitive films in that particular genre. But my friend Sean had said that this film also really obviously was that, but it also had a big influence on from Coppola's Dracula, and also the source material of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is one of my favorite books of all time. So I was like, wow, okay, that's an interesting angle, and and if it was anyone else at the director's helm, I probably wouldn't be nowhere. I wouldn't have been as fired up as I was, or as I have been, to see this film, because I love Robert Eggers, and I feel like he has such an incredible track record. And I thought that this movie did all of those things. Like, it really expanded. It's I don't know, the dialogue, everything. It's like poetic elegance, everything, and the cinematography. I mean, talk about atmosphere and world building. I mean, this is kind of next level. You can feel the snow on your skin when there are scenes in the wilderness, and in this in this glorious world. The it takes place in Germany in the 1800s, and you just feel all of the elements that your body is. You feel immersed in this universe, and it's the sound design, everything is just incredible, and of course the cast is amazing. The writing for this film is some of the best writing I think I've seen in a very long time, and especially for Robert Eggers. The cast is just absolutely incredible. Um, Bill Skarsgård plays Count Orlok, aka Dracula, and it's one of the best performances I've seen this year. It's you literally cannot recognize him in any way, shape, or form. The way he delivers his dialogue and his lines, it's so there's this sense of doom when you first appears on the screen, and when you first hear his voice. Um, and it's like, you know, Dracula's character, or Nosferatu's character, is more. It's almost less of a character, more of like this force of nature that you're encountering, and it's like this the epitome the epitome of evil. Um, and there's like this sense of doom and gloom that is like unprecedented when he is. I mean, talk about like an imposing presence. I mean, you literally cannot tell. It doesn't resemble anything mortal in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it's just incredible. William Dafoe, again, just is incredible in this film. I was completely blown away by Lily Rose Depp, who is the lead in this film. She puts on a performance of a lifetime. I mean, just the her acting, but then the physicality of what she puts herself through is just amazing, kind of jaw dropping. Nicholas Holt, incredible in this film. Ralph Innocent is just incredible. He was also in The Witch. Willem Dafoe was in The Lighthouse and also The Northman. Aaron Taylor Johnson is just incredible in this movie also. There's so much rich texture to this movie, and so the criticisms I had heard about this movie was that people were saying that it was too much. There was too much CGI. They felt that the story was too simple, too predictable, and that Robert Eggers didn't really do anything new. They were people who were criticizing this film, even people who were saying that they liked this film, were saying that they felt that he was going to put his kind of Edgar spin on things and give you something really unique. And I have to say, visually, well, first off, I think visually, it's. I know there was a use of CGI, but I never noticed it once. I mean, I felt like the majority of what I was seeing was real and practical effects. The sets, I know there were extensive sets built for this movie. I never once felt that anything was artificial. I felt the world building, the atmosphere, the cinematography. I was completely immersed and engrossed in it every second. I never thought for at any time that it was an overabundance of CGI. I felt like everything was blended perfectly. Like again, I'm a big critic of practical effects when they're used with CGI because a lot of the times it's pretty obvious, and even more of a critic about CGI. I think there are examples of where CGI can be used really, really well. I think with Peter Jackson's first three Lord of the Rings movies, that is a great blending of both of those art forms. Overall, I'm a practical effects guy, but I felt with this film it was seamless. Like it never took me out of the movie once. I just thought it was the highest level craftsmanship, as far as world building. The atmosphere, the lighting for this film, it is just so incredibly rich. The dialogue, the dialogue has so much levity to it. It's so rich. I feel like it reads like, well, it really reminded me of like the first experience I had of reading Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, there's so much rich detail. There's you know, the old English, the old classical way of how people communicated is the period. It's all about the period piece, and I just feel like this movie just exemplifies that top to bottom. Another criticism I heard of this film was that it's just not very scary, and it's very predictable. Visually, it looks great, but it's just predictable and it's not very scary. I beg to differ. I think that there are some very terrifying moments. It's a gothic horror story, and so I don't get these criticisms that people have said about it, but it is what it is. But I think that this is, without a doubt, a definitive version of this film. I love how it has its own thing. I think it really has. I think Robert Eggers does have his own does throw his own kind of spin on things, especially by the second and third act, and the ending was really interesting. I didn't really see that coming, and it all made sense. It was all really cohesive. There is this whole film too is very serious. Like, it has this really, like, again, you just get this sense from the beginning that this movie starts that there is this inevitable impending doom that's coming to you and to this world, and you get this feeling like everyone and everything is going to die, and that Nosferatu, Dracula's character, isn't really a character. Almost, he's like this force of nature. and they really pull and stretch and play with that in this film. Skarsgård's portrayal, again, it's just like a force. Like even when Dracula or Nosferatu is not necessarily, in a scene, you still feel his presence throughout the film, and I just feel like it's atmosphere beyond atmosphere. It's incredible. I thought the way they blended the cinematography, the music, it's a very slow paced movie. I thought, but it's very dialogue driven too. It's a long movie. It's like close to it's I think it's the running time is like 2 hours and 35 minutes, but I never felt it dragged at all. I could have seen more. I never thought it was too long. I never got tired. I I wanted to see more almost by the end of it. But again, it's such a rich, layered story. At least the way the the dialogue is written, that I would definitely get many things out of rewatching this movie. I definitely will buy this on Blu-ray when it comes out. I will get. I will have different feelings with numerous watchings of this film. Again, it's like it has such a literary depth to it. It's and you gotta as a viewer, it's so great to see a film that has intelligence. It's not a film which happens too often. A lot of films, a lot of studios get released where you can throw a movie in and 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in, or even midway through, you can get up and go to the bathroom or make a pizza and come back, and then when you come back to watching the film or engage with the film, you realize you haven't really missed anything because it just has this paint by numbers formulaic kind of a thing. And of course, like, this story has been told many times, but this is told in a very elegant and poetic way, and it has a arching kind of feeling of darkness and gloom and tragedy. And again, each character has there's a lot of dimension, there's so much richness to it that I couldn't take my eyes off of it. And definitely not a movie that I could get up and walk away from. I will easily I could easily sit through this again. It's an incredible film, and I feel like it's a journey. It's truly a journey. I think that this is with the sound design for this film is incredible. Like, this is a reason. This is made. I think all of Robert Eggers' films are, but this is without a doubt a film that is meant to be seen in the theater. I mean, you talk about immersion, you talk about world building, and really leaving the world behind for a few hours. Like, that's what this is. And it's incredible. It's an incredible feat. And I know Robert Eggers has been wanting to make this film his entire life, and I feel like you can see that care, that focus, that love, that the balance, striking that balance. He pays homage to the classic, the original silent film. I think he also pays great tribute to the iconic novel from Bram Stoker. There's also a great nod to Coppola's masterpiece in this film, and it does other things. It does other things that we haven't really seen before, or that I haven't seen before. It's incredible. So I highly recommend it. I from what I gather too, with this film, it's been selling out. We went last night with four. I went with four friends, and it was sold out. We got the last four tickets, so we got good seats. It was a packed house, and I love that. Going in, people were very chatty, and then the trailers came on. I saw the trailer for Wolf, the Wolfman, the new Lee Winnell film, which I'm really excited about, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. Definitely gonna go see that. You know, people were chatting and talking, and there was like all different age groups there. There was, you know, older folks, there was teenagers, you know, and families. It was a pretty big cross section of different kinds of people. I'm a big people watcher, so I always love to like scope out, you know, what's kind of going on in terms of that. So it was a real interesting cross section of different people. And I always get worried sometimes when I go to a movie that's really packed that you're going to have those douchebags that are going to insist on talking throughout the movie, or they're going to be on their phone, or not necessarily like, I love when people interact with the movie. You know, that's what people used to do, where they like scream, or they like laugh out loud, or they when they see a character doing something that is really stupid, they yell, or you know, just they have that interaction. I want to have that experience when I see a film. When I saw The Substance with Demi Moore, it was like that. But it's different when you have people who are just, you know, they probably should have stayed home because they're talking about bullshit or nothing to do with the film. They're talking to their friends, they're on their phone. But the interesting was, like, it was a lot of chatter, a lot of people talking. And at one point, I knew this film was going to be probably quiet at times, and also it was probably going to be a slow burn, because Robert Eggers' films are usually, they always have that kind of vibe to them. But the minute the film started, and throughout the entire duration, you couldn't hear a peep. Everyone was just sat in total silence. It was awesome. This film really grabbed your attention. Just the opening sequence, you really got this sense of what's going to come your way, and it was amazing. I can't recommend this movie enough, especially for having a real theatrical experience. Get your butts to the theater and see this. And from what I gather, I haven't looked at the numbers, but from what I gather, this, you know, from what I've heard, since it's open, there's been all kinds of, most of the shows have been selling out. The theater that we went to at Flagship, which was a really good theater. I mean, the sound was great, the picture was great. It was just awesome. We had really, I sat in I think it was the second row. It was intense. The lady at the desk had said that the Friday night had sold out too when it opened, which was Christmas night, Christmas Day night. So, yeah, just I can't recommend enough. It's incredible. It's definitely if not the most definitive version of this classic monster. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.